So his sister's running for re-election.
Yeah,
So
she's game actually.
she's here, yeah. She's actually.
School board.
Out there and this
She wants you to.
Just this spring.
She was there today in council. She didn't even keep this. Starts there. Usually 3:30-ish. And then they're, that's their work. The rest is 32 seconds. That we've never been past. Ours was substance.
Yeah, so other than just like what we said. You know, yourself every day. So feels like how was your trip? I went to Texas. Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds nice. Oh, that sounds fun. Oh, such a fun. I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa like to hang out. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Then that was like extra special.
Agenda. That's what I'm looking for here.
All right, it's now 4:30. We'll call to order the study meeting for the West Valley City Council. This April 26, 2022, in the multipurpose room of West Valley City Hall. So we have two members that are absent and excused for tonight for both meetings, and that's Councilman Fitzumanu and Councilman Harmon. We'll now move on to the minutes of April 19th, 2022. Do we have any comments, corrections, or a motion?
I move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, those pass. We'll now review our meetings for tonight, our regular meeting, and then the BA meeting, Building Authority. Are there any changes, adjustments?
There are no changes other than, wasn't there one to the building authority or nothing to that either?
No
Okay.
changes.
Nope. No
Nope,
changes,
nope.
ma'am.
Okay, were there any questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to reviewing our first public hearing next week, which will be application GPZ 3 2022. And we'll turn the time over to Mr. Pastrick.
You were too quick for me. I almost had it keyed up there. Nicole, were you able to promote me there?
I clicked on it a couple of times. It hasn't asked you? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for your patience there. So this item involves two pieces of property on the corner of 40th West and Benview Drive. The property outlined in red there, there's a daycare on the property now. And the request is to change the zoning from the residential business zone to the C2 zone, as well as amend the general plan from non-retail commercial to general commercial. Here's just a close-up of that. You have just several buildings, but it's all related to the daycare. I'll just go through some images here quickly. So you can see the purple is the RB zoning, and then to the south, the C2 zoning, where you have the Home Depot and Smith's and other commercial along 40th West. Just a plat map there. Just some images. This is from Benview looking north. There's a mobile home park directly north of the property. This would be looking south along 40th in front of the daycare. And looking to the east at the daycare, some of the buildings, outbuildings there. Is the home that's used as part of the daycare. This would be looking to the north. So the wall there on the right is the wall separating the daycare from the Sonic that's there just directly south. The home across the street on the west side of 40th. Just another shot looking to the northeast. And you can see the Sonic that's again just on the other side of the wall to the south. And then looking from Benview to the south. So this was the concept plan that was submitted. The idea or the proposal was to redevelop the property into a restaurant with a drive up. And the challenge here would be that the proposal, as you can see, included a drive approach on 40th West, kind of on the south end of the property. And based on our standards, there's a certain distance required between curb cuts. So that curb cut is much too close to the existing curb cut for Sonic. We relayed that feedback to the applicant, and our Public Works Department recommended that they work with the owner to the south and share the existing drive approach. So I'll try now to describe kind of how that all unfolded, what happened after that. So the owner or the applicant who's under contract to purchase this property approached the landowner to the south and said, hey, would you be willing to work with me on sharing the access? To which the owner said yes, but at a cost. So the applicant went back to the lender and to see if they could secure additional funding. And they declined that. And then the applicant essentially said, well, if I'm not able to get this shared access, then I'll be left with one access, to which the lender said, well, if that's the case, we won't lend you anything. So the applicant in this case, it's a little unusual situation, but is in my last conversation with her is essentially asked that this be denied, even though that she made the application, because she's in a bit of a pickle because she's still under contract, but then is not able to get the funding to do something that would work with what the city would require. So a little unusual to have the applicant ask for denial, but that's hopefully you understand the situation why that's the case.
So if she just pulls her application, that's not good enough for her real estate contract? Is that what I'm taking from that?
That's right.
Okay, so we have to deny it. Okay.
Oh, it's already been denied by the planning commission.
Correct. Whenever we have an application that involves a general plan amendment, it automatically comes to the council. And in this case, it comes with their recommendation for denial.
Just don't want everyone they deny coming to us, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I know we're not gonna accept this, the contract, whatever she can offer to us. But I curious about the first picture you saw, you presented to us that the red item right here, the one is right in front of the 4,000 west. Why it didn't include in that whole deal, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, let me go back to that
Yeah,
map.
first one.
Already an entrance there on 4,000.
No, it's the,
That's right there.
Just, yeah, our,
Just small right there.
right, our mapping system was just off a little bit, but that parcel actually does go all the way to 40th West.
Okay, so that's gonna go through to the 4,000 west.
yeah,
Right,
we're
so
gonna
that,
deny
that
it.
parcel, in fact, this map here, I know it's a little small, but this is more accurate here. This shows you can see both parcels are roughly the same length.
Okay. Yeah.
Where there's the curb cut where it is right now to get into the daycare.
Right.
Why wouldn't that be acceptable to get into the?
Great question. So whenever we have like a wholesale redevelopment like this, then we basically treat it as if it's a vacant site. And at that point, they have to comply with all of our standards.
So it's too close right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Pastor. We will now move on to Lane Morris has a presentation regarding the Cdbg. I can never say that without looking at it.
Afternoon, Council. I just very quickly, this is the annual CDBG recommendation from our CDBG committee submitted to you for approval, for discussion that we submit to HUD each year. We don't have a current budget from HUD yet. They have not released that money. We anticipate it'll be approximately the same thing as we got last year, give or take about 5%. And so attached is the committee's recommendation in consultation with the city manager. And that's, unless there's any question, that's really the essence of my presentation.
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah, I just like, and I've brought this up in the past, and I think, I brought it up further along in the planning process for it to be considered, but I think for the next round, I'd like to just consider different ways to use a portion of the CDBG funding. Seen it, how it's been used in other areas and how we're leveraging private dollars with CDBG funding to create a bigger impact. I would like to consider that in future rounds and be involved in the planning process.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea.
How does that work? Well,
Yeah, so in other areas, I've seen them use CDBG funding to create a loan fund for economic development, and they use the CDBG funding as a portion of the loan loss reserve to bring in other participants. And I've seen a $10 to $15 million loan fund where businesses that are not bankable can come into the loan fund, access funding to help expand or start their business. The CDBG funding acts as a loan loss reserve only for a short time until the fund builds its own loan loss reserve, giving the lenders sort of comfort in participating in the fund. Once that loan loss reserve hits, say, 10%, then the funding goes back into the general pool to be used in other areas. And so it's just kind of a way for lenders to gain comfort in participating in the loan fund while at the same time expanding and using private dollars to push forward economic development in the city. So it's kind of a unique way and just a different way of thinking about using the funds. It wouldn't be the entire pool or fund, but a portion of it to kick it off.
Okay,
Several years ago, I can get the exact date, but we did our CDBG entitlements, probably not large enough to do at the scale you're talking about. We did a micro enterprise loan fund
Okay.
where we underwrote, I think it was 5 different micro enterprise enterprises and it went pretty well. There's a significant administrative burden that goes along with that, that makes it difficult both for the micro enterprises that are trying to get started as well as the city. But it's certainly something that we could look at doing again.
Yeah, it is an administration burden. In fact, the one I'm thinking of, they put out an RFP and had a third party sort of manage it, manage the fund and all that goes along with that. But it's something just to consider.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else for Mr. Morris?
Couple question, Elaine. The first one is the people, they still using the CDBG for their home improvement, like just a few people and other people are not seeing. So they're still doing that?
Significantly, yeah. In fact, the COVID CDBG money, which we received, which was $1 million, almost entirely going towards the home improvement program. And then for our annual allotment, we typically do a couple of 100,000, 250, 350,000 that goes towards that neighborhood infrastructure, those type of projects.
The second question is, you were up here anyway, so maybe I have a question for you maybe next time. Can you present to us about the co-enforcement in PUD area? That'd be right. Yeah, I want to know a bit more about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, one more. I forgot that.
Thanks, ma'am. Yeah, so I did want to point out, we are doing something a little bit different here in case anybody didn't actually catch that. And that could have effect on
How many
applicants
people?
coming in next week and ask for more money. So I wanted to re-describe that and then also ask Lane to kind of talk about if you do have different requests coming that way, how you could possibly handle them or what are sort of the limitations of that given the various rules we got to operate under for CDBG. So the major change here is that neighborhood services, we have asked for $70,000 of the CDBG monies to support the operation of my hometown and that general function, which remember we talked about a few weeks ago in budget. There would be another way to do that. You could do that out of general fund money, but this is the way we recommended it here. We think that we can do that and probably take care of most, if not maybe all of anybody else who might come in. I know that's all very vague, right? There were like 3 mights in there, just because we don't know for sure what anybody would be really coming in to ask for. But if they did, who would be the likely candidates and how would we be able to handle them or not?
So the committee has a priority list, and we can break that down by in-house entities and then nonprofits that are coming in. So for instance, that $165,000, we could do it where council could say, you know, we'd like to, typically, I think as I've gone back and looked at the proposal, out of that 165,000, it's been about half of it has gone to city entities, different departments, and half to nonprofits. And with the addition of the new position, it's overwhelmingly staying in-house. So if you decided that you wanted to switch that back, obviously either the department has to stop doing the activity or it's got to be funded some other way, like through the general fund. But if we're given instructions, for instance, to say, well, let's put out of that 165,000, we'd like to make sure that 50,000 of it goes to the nonprofits, then we'd simply look at the committee ranking of those nonprofits and how much they asked for, and then, pull the top 3 till we get to 50,000 and include them in the proposal for your approval. So that's how I would propose doing it, just to make it simple, but there's a couple of different ways we could do that. If it's just an individual, you have the ability to look at all the applications, and if you want to pick one out that that everyone agrees on, then we'll certainly make that. The committee is simply just a recommendation through a public hearing where all the applicants have come in and given us their best shot, and the committee of 5 people all voted, and that's how it came. But we're not, we're not the final authority there.
Okay, is there any desire from the council to break this out any differently?
I wish we had enough money to give to all of them. They do such good work. But you can't do
this?
everything, right?
Don?
I'm with Lars. I wish we had enough to give everybody something, but we don't.
Okay. Tom, Scott, same idea?
Yeah, I like my hometown things. Things they over there, they do it well, and we support them.
Okay.
A little bit more or something.
So I don't see a need next week to even offer to switch things around. So, okay,
And then, by the way, we would not have come up with that. Certainly wasn't our intent to vary from here. Just wanted to make sure we kind of gave you guys the mechanism if you wanted it.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure everyone that isn't getting anything will be here next week to let us know,
We'll see how it goes.
since they are every other year.
All right, we're going to turn the time over to Mr. Bunderson in reference to Resolution 22-81, condemnation of real property.
Eric Bunderson, City Attorney, Mayor and Council. I think I've got the next two. So this is in a way similar to Mr. Pastrick's earlier item, where we're sort of asking to do something weird to the applicant. In this case, through the labyrinth federal bureaucracy, this particular property that we're doing the road project at 4700 South, it's Valley Mental Health, is 2 parcels. This particular property, in order to accept transfer for the project and be, and come into our possession, has to be condemned by resolution, but not filed in district court. So they need you, in other words, to authorize me to sue them, but then not sue them. And in that case, whatever federal agency is dealing with their money and their property and everything else will be able to transfer title of the land over to us. It's a really weird deal. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what's going to happen with them. But the important part for us and for Dan is that the project's already going. We got a right of occupancy agreement, which allows us to go onto the property and build our project and then worry about the transfer of the property and the cost and everything else later. So long story short, it's sort of like a friendly condemnation of the property, which we plan on doing absolutely nothing with after you pass the resolution, except to work out the cost of the property with them.
So we're asking you to speak even softer, carry a
A bigger
bigger.
stick. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yep. So that's those 2 items.
So just 2 different parcels
Mhm.
on the same.
Yeah, same
property.
entity. Yeah, same entity, just 2 parcels. So with some weird federal funding that is tying the whole thing up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now go to Resolution 22-83, tentative budget. We'll turn the time over to Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so basically for tonight, I just want to go over and reiterate the process. There are a couple of minor changes to make and then just open up to any further direction that the council might have. So just to recap the process, we're officially presenting you the tentative budget tonight. You will consider it for tentative approval at the next meeting, which is May the whatever, second, third. And I did do some a little, whatever it is, whenever those days show up. I did do something a little bit different this year. I usually, at this same time we do this, we present you a paper copy. And I'll still get you one of those if you would like, but we didn't this year just because we decided to kind of try it out, see if everybody was okay with just having the electronic version. But we did do the paper copy in the past. We can do the paper version if you'd like. And do you have a preference, Mayor, you think, or amongst the council, or is electronic only okay? Or what would be your desire?
We'll ask. Councilman Christensen or Norfelt, do you have preference, paper or electronic?
Electronic. I've got all of those paper copies sitting at home and I don't think I've ever owned.
Electronics. I have a copy of
A paper?
the physical paper.
I might even, I haven't marked it all up. I could just give you this one.
So like
Okay.
before I go sleep, I can,
Yeah,
there you
it'll put
go.
you to sleep every night.
yeah,
Here you go. You have that one.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, now then on also with the process. So I haven't made any changes since last time we discussed this. We do still have the 2 program mod lists to discuss if and when you would like. Neither of those lists is necessary for the tentative budget adoption. They're certainly germane. That was the other word I was thinking of. So we could talk about those now if you'd like, or further, or continue on. You could adopt any of those changes ongoing or one time at any time between adoption of the final budget and or the tentative budget next week. Now, having said that, one of the small changes that I do have that's changed since last we talked is we have found about another $250,000 in a savings that we can accrue by changing just slightly our health insurance plan. And basically how that's set up is we had a choice of 2 plans. We had a larger group of employees that picked one, a smaller group of employees that picked the other. Asked John to go and explore with some of the folks that were on the other plan, whether it would materially or significantly affect their choices or issues they might have with doctors or whatever. It didn't seem to be a big change. Now, of course, I say that, and 3 people will pop out of the woodwork 2 weeks after we announce we want to do this, but we have done that in the past, and it hasn't really resulted in too much turmoil. Anyway, so bottom line of the reason why that's important is that $250,000 I could take and start applying off of those ongoing program mod items that we talked about in the 3 groups before. Where you remember I termed one of them as kind of like, yeah, we almost really kind of need to do these ones. The second group was more IT related that we still needed to do, but maybe we could even do some sort of one-time version of, but ongoing would be better. And then the third set was some other stuff. So we could start working our way down that list. If I don't feel or understand if the council has any strong feeling one way or the other on those program mods, that's probably what I would do. I would just, as I get any of those little savings like that, start working my way down that list and incorporate them into the overall budget. And then you would just see them as the budget changes between the tentative and the final budget adoption. The one-time project list is a little bit of a different animal. Now, this is the list of the $10 million in projects. The $10 million were selected from the $21 million in requests. None of the projects are, of course, in any way what I would call unnecessary or frivolous or just nice to have. Almost anything that's on that list is something that probably needs repair or has lasted past its life expectancy, all that sort of thing. So on the one hand, they're good and they're valuable projects, but on the other hand, they're not like, I got to do them right now today either. So we could continue to look at those further. And then if the council does have a express preference for part or all or whatever of the list, you can approve that as part of the budget. And then we would put those in the capital improvement project budget, spend out of there. Another way to approach that would be, hey, we want to be more cautious in the current economic climate, however we interpret that, And you could add projects that in the quarterly budget opening session, for example.
Okay.
All of these comments are really just meant to give you options to deal with them. Like I said, they're important projects, but they're not, I gotta be doing these right now, tomorrow sorts of projects.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the budget?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, and I probably went over this earlier. But the program mods is to modify the current budget.
Yeah.
But we're also simultaneously considering the July 1st or August budget. And how are those related at all? There were things we need to consider in the tentative budget that relate to the program mods?
No, so there's nothing in the program mod list that would be separate from the budget. It's the same budget, the one that would be adopted next week and the one that would be finally adopted, unless the council decides there are pieces of that they don't want to have or do want to have. But that's the only variation, just depending on how you guys would add or subtract from there. And maybe that's also a good segue to reiterate again, what's the whole concept of program modifications? Why do we call them that? It's because we start out with that baseline budget, so to speak, and any changes from there, actually not so much down, but any additions to that, whether it's a one-time project or a ongoing project, are put on that modification list, hence the name of it. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. And how, just how does this program mod list compare to previous years? I think you mentioned there was some federal funding that
Great question. Right.
this is a little bit bigger.
So I was telling Will earlier that, yeah, even though the program mod list, especially on the one-time side that I'm suggesting, is only half of what was requested, it's still far more than I've ever proposed before, right? In a normal budget year, I might propose $1 or $2 million worth of one-time projects on the program mod list. So why so many this year? Because we are having a significant fund balance reserve show up as we push through all the federal dollars, COVID money, as it has come to us and as it has been dispensed through the system. So I wouldn't be making that recommendation if I wasn't foreseeing that we would have a significantly higher fund balance at the end of all of the budget activity.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We will now turn the time back to Mr. Pyle for the consent agenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay. I remember right. They're both the same type of project. They're not the same project though, right, Nicole?
Yeah, they're both for the 3100
Oh, they are
South
both for 3100. Okay, so pretty typical.
overlay project.
Yeah. Right away and warranty deed acceptance along with the temporary construction easement. One of them is $4,400 and the other one is popping up now, $500.
Okay. Any questions or concerns on that one? Okay, we'll now move to the council calendar. Any concerns there? I will say I received a comment of rave reviews for Little Women. So,
I don't know if it's the
They
same
much like
source,
it.
but I heard that too.
Yeah.
People really like that.
no, you were not in Relief Society on.
Okay, yeah.
Probably not the
No,
same one,
Not the same source
but
then.
there was a public announcement of how good it was. It wasn't by me.
Okay, great.
So-
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it was very, very well received, so. Anyway, so if you can make it to that, it's probably a good one. All right, any potential future agenda items? So I had a call today from a resident. They called the animal shelter and they don't know anything about the skunk program that we started last year.
We'll have Lane re-educate the staff. I'm assuming that means they called like a staff member, pick up the phone and
Yep.
they said they didn't know anything about.
Correct. We
Us
don't
helping
have such a
skunks.
thing. We don't
Okay.
have a contractor. We have nothing.
All right.
Send it to the dispatcher or something. And they didn't know anything about it. I got a Facebook
Lane, got some further
Education to
education
do?
or training?
My wife has the actual Facebook trail, so I'll have her forward those to you, Lane.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, now, council reports. Anybody? Yes.
I attended the Spring Fest. Was that Friday?
Yep.
It was awesome. There was a ton of people there, a lot of participation. So, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Grandkids are doing fine in Albuquerque.
Good job. Job well done then, right?
I hope so.
Okay,
It's the same thing. I attended Spring Fest. It was great. Walked out of there with a brand new push broom. So
oh, nice. All right, now I'll turn the time over to Mr. Pyle to go through our RDA meeting, Housing Authority and Building Authority.
Hey, thank you, ma'am. I think only with any actual action on is the building authority, but let me check through just to be sure.
I'll review the budget.
Oh, the
And the
budget.
budget.
Well, yes, there is that, the annual budget. Let me also look through there. I'm starting here with the RDA meeting. Looking through the budget, there's nothing there that's gonna look unusual to you. It's also frankly not that obvious as to what's going on either, but that's because each one of these project areas is summarized and then matches, of course, the revenue and the expenditure item. I would say that if any of you ever have any interest in actually getting into the details of what's going on with any of the particular project areas, you'll remember that from time to time, we have economic development presentations, projects that come to you for approval or consideration. But even in addition to that, if you'd like a more in-depth description of what goes on with the RDA project areas, please feel free to call and we'll set you up with Mark Nord and RDA setup and get you through that.
Okay.
So no significant changes on that one. Housing Authority. Also, it's going to look pretty normal to you from an annual budget standpoint. And again, this is really more of an in and out, almost enterprise type fund for the purpose of receiving the federal funds and then being able to expend them again. You'll notice that across the actual years that you see and the tentative, it doesn't vary a whole lot from that $3.5 to $4 million sort of range. Then on the building authority, once again, the building authority is just a vehicle to service debt for various projects that the city undertakes on bonding capacity. And on this one, does vary a lot from year to year, depending on what the projects are. So if you do have, again, sort of like the RDA, if you have questions about particular projects or anything on it, we'd be glad to go over those with you. Now, let me also double check. Tentative budget. That's it. Where's our bond item?
That's
That's
tonight.
tonight.
Oh, it's tonight. Sorry. Okay, very good. All right, that's
Getting
it.
ahead of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any questions on those three agendas? All right. I think we're done with our business for the day. We do have need for a closed session for pending litigation.
Yes, ma'am.
If someone would make that motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you. We have a motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go into